From The Times and The Sunday Times, this is The Story. I'm Luke Jones. This is not just any cyber attack.
Marks and Spencer click and collect customers face a very frustrating weekend.
M&S said it's grateful to customers for their understanding, but its share price fell 5% today.
They're losing about £3.9 million a day.
The cyber attack that hit the chain, causing chaos over the last few days, is still having an impact.
First it was M&S, then the Co-op, then they even attempted a cyber attack on Harrods, they being...
Scattered spider.
Scattered spider.
Scattered spider.
Scattered spider.
Scattered spider. They're malicious, they're persistent, and they're motivated by money.
So who are they? And how can you help stop them? The story today, caught in the web of scattered spider.
My name's Mark Sellman, and I'm the technology correspondent of The Times.
You've been on this beat for a while, Mark. When did you first hear of scattered spider? How far back?
Well, they come in and out of prominence, and I should say that scattered spider is one of their names. They've been called many other things, probably less catchy, which is why their names haven't quite taken on as much credence. But it's an octotempest, they're sometimes called, octopus, storm 0875, and there's lots of names for them. But the most significant thing is that they're really a group of mostly young men in America and Britain. And the most significant hack they've been attributed to is the hack of the Las Vegas casinos. So that's MGM and Caesar's Palace, or the Caesar Group. Interestingly, they're believed to have hacked those organisations in a very similar way to Marks and Spencer.
The most recent, as you say, has been this hack on M&S, it seems. When did it become clear to you that the proverbial had really hit the fan with that hack?
Well, like all hacks, it sort of starts with a little ripple, and that was over the Easter weekend when M&S said that contactless payments weren't working. And sometimes it stops there and becomes just a very localised issue and it gets fixed. But then things started to snowball, sort of culminating a week later when they suspended all online orders on April the 25th. But there have been lots of other sort of effects across M&S stores since then.
And it's surprised me at how much it seems to have clogged up the business. To what extent?
Yeah, well, if you think about any business, it probably relies on hundreds of different applications. It's all done electronically, managed automatically, and suddenly you become blind if you have to shut down those networks or you're shut out of those networks. And once you become blind, obviously you get shortages on shelves, which we've seen today. They've stopped some meal deals because, they can't get the crisps or whatever, and it's sort of, it sounds trivial, but that's probably we're seeing the impact on it from the outside. I think internally this will be a horror show. Probably very few of the members of staff will be able to use a company computer at the moment. If you can imagine what that's like, they're all having to go to their personal computers or backups or even pen and paper, down to telephone calls. And, it can be very, very painful.
And that pain isn't just at M&S. It broadened out after we learned of their issues to other companies as well.
It did, and the two other organisations are the Co-op and Harros, and they too are having empty shelves as they discover the hack is deeper into their system, or that the hackers have shut off a bit of their system that they didn't realise was affected. So it's a creeping process, but it is very, very insidious.
Very. When did it become apparent that it was this group, Scattered Spider, or whatever we're calling it, that was behind, we think, these three high-profile hacks?
That was really down to a report from a specialist website called Bleeping Computer, who attributed it to Scattered Spider. The other bit is that they used a bit of software called Dragon Force, which is sort of, run by another group. That's never been officially confirmed that this is the group, but I think subsequent queries from journalists like myself have really established that that was a pretty accurate report in Bleeping Computer, and it hasn't been denied by the companies at hand.
Have they said anything about this Scattered Spider? I mean, I assume they don't have a spokesperson. Is it easy to get any understanding from them?
Actually, a lot of the times you do get a claim of responsibility on a dark web forum for a hack. It's often when negotiations have broken down for a ransom and they're threatening to publish some of the data that has been stolen. And there's been nothing like that from them, but there has been a claim of responsibility for the CoOp hack from a group called Dragon Force, who Scattered Spider seems to have teamed up with.
It all seems very collaborative, this. If we think about Scattered Spider itself, why are they a scattered spider? How does it work?
When we call them a group, I think that's in the loosest sense of the word. They are a collection of young hackers based in Britain and the UK who collaborate online to hack into all kinds of businesses, but they don't necessarily know who each other are or really go according to a membership. It's very loose, and this group seems to have come out of a group called The Com, which is another kind of essentially online criminal group who have been operating in the United States, not just doing hacks, they're doing other nefarious things online. These things have overlapping effects, and that's why it's very, very hard to talk about them as a really tight-knit group, because obviously we now have 6 or 7 members of Scattered Spider either charged or in custody in the United States, yet we still see they are operating.
Is there something about their approach that unites them as well? I take your point that, a lot of these people work across such a broad suite of crimes, but is there something about Scattered Spider that differentiates them or marks them out?
Their most significant characteristic is that they are English speaking, and most ransomware groups are either based in Russia or Eastern Europe. But because the Scattered Spider group are English speaking, they're able to essentially what I'd call break down the front door of organizations. And that's because they use something called social engineering.
So they're English speaking, but also I guess they're not aligned to any state. Is that quite different?
It is, because sometimes hacks are motivated by geopolitics and interstate war or rivalry. You'd think about Russia and China and now North Korea, Iran. These states are essentially in conflict with the West and other nation states, and they use cybercrime as what's essentially a proxy or kinetic warfare. So you look at Russia, for instance, there's a blurring line between a criminal ransomware organization that is extorting a business in the UK, America, Australia, Canada, and the Kremlin's objectives of causing disruption in the West. And that essentially becomes where, Putin's state will tolerate these criminals operating in Russia and will not extradite them to the West.
But as you say, these guys are, it seems, about extortion, and I assume then for them it is about the money.
It can be, and that seems to be a motivation. You also can get a lot of bragging. You can get a lot of, especially with younger members of the groups, it can be an obsession. So there can be lots of different shades of this, as mentioned previously. It's never one thing, but at the heart of it, you have money.
If it is about the money, how do they get paid?
Cryptocurrency. Hacking was supercharged when cryptocurrencies came on the scene, because until that time, it was very difficult to make a payment without it being traced. Cryptocurrencies have given payments outside of the normal banking system a way of moving around the globe. So that has supercharged the whole industry, and it is an industry now. Although, ironically, one of the attractions of cryptocurrency is it's supposedly always traceable. The criminals do find a way of hiding those payments sometimes, but law enforcement can really trace them quite well. So it's a double-edged sword to it, but at the heart of it, cryptocurrency has enabled this crime to explode. And also, their methods have stayed one step ahead of both organisations and sometimes law enforcement.
Mark, we've got this situation where hacking groups are getting into some of these company computer systems and the rest, and are able to hold them to ransom. You said that their methods are keeping ahead of law enforcement and some of these companies in some instances. What are those methods? What are you seeing? Thinking about particularly Scattered Spider, how do they work and how is it going so well for them?
When you're English speaking, you can convince people to do things that, others can't. And whether or not it is an IT help desk to reset a password, sometimes they pretend to be the IT help desk themselves. So they'll spot someone's just joined a company and they'll contact that person at home and they'll say, it's the IT help desk. We just need to set up something on your computer, and will you just let us into your computer? And we've all been through that, where someone can remotely attach themselves to your computer. You click accept, and then they'll put a malicious software in, and they can, steal all your credentials and then find a way back into the system. So that's another way. Scattered Spider really did make their name through something called SIM swapping. And this is where they essentially hijack your telephone number. One way they can do it is by calling up a phone company and pretending to be you and saying, I've lost my phone and I just really need to get that number onto a different SIM card. Can you help me? And again, we leave a lot of our personal details online for everyone to gather, and they can go through security as we do on the phone, and they can get that phone number put on the criminal SIM card. So once they have that, if they have to go through a security check for a company, we often get SMS messages. Now they're going to go now to the criminal and not to the employee. So that's how they essentially can impersonate and get access to systems.
So it can be as simple as that I'm after your password, Mark, so I managed to get your phone number switched onto a phone that I have in front of me. I try and do a password reset on some fabulous system that you've got access to, and the security code it sends to you to check it is you doing this comes to me, so I can then easily get in.
Yeah.
Incredible. It is more like a confidence trick, isn't it, than hacking? When we say hacking, I think of what you see in films where there's someone with 7 monitors on their computer desktop and it's all code and the rest of it. But this is sort of old school confidence tricksterism, isn't it?
Correct. And that's, to be honest, I'm afraid the sad truth of probably 50, 60, 70, 80, maybe even 90% of hacks, they're down to human frailty.
So once you're in, to follow the thread, the hacker will, close a system, disrupt it, just make it known that they are within the system somewhere. And if you're a big company that relies on some of these important systems to do business, it could cost you a lot of money. So you're, I guess, in some circumstances, likely to pay a ransom to have it released back to you.
Yeah, I mean, the heart of it is the installation of encryption. So that disables or cripples your system. You cannot get access to it because the hackers have encrypted it. And that is essentially the nuclear button that they press and they threaten you with, and they say, if you pay me X million pounds or dollars or whatever it is in cryptocurrency, you can have the key to unlock that. It is a constant battle between organizations and attackers. And most of the time it doesn't succeed. But it only takes a very, very small percentage of the actual hacks to succeed for it to be a multi-billion-dollar industry, which it is.
And there must be lots of them that just get settled and we never hear of.
A lot of it exists in the dark. Many companies will just pay off the hackers, get their systems back, and just want to move on and forget about it. Given that a lot of these organizations are companies and their duty is really just to get the business back on track, not for a wider societal purpose.
Is there anything that the authorities can do to try and stop this, prevent it, better get on top of the problem?
You'll see lots of statements from senior officials saying this is a wake-up call for organisations, because one of the things they're trying to do is to convince businesses, organisations, charities, whatever it is, to take cybersecurity seriously, because for many years, and even still, people do not take it seriously. They don't think it's going to happen to them. It's much more important to get the product out, to focus on the key elements of the business, but not to invest in cybersecurity. And they are trying to convince people to do that. So that's one way. They have to try and force the software companies not to sell products that have flaws in them, because those flaws are a lot of the ways the hackers can get in. But now they're increasingly looking at trying to destroy the business model of the hackers.
In what way?
Well, at the heart of it is an extortion network. It's illegal to pay a ransom to a terrorist if they kidnap a member of your family or something like that. It's not illegal to pay a cyber criminal to unlock your network. But increasingly, the governments in this country and others think that they need to chip away at that model. So this government has proposed banning certain organisations and companies in what it calls critical industries from paying the ransoms. Now, one of those industries is food, and obviously one of those organisations in that business would be Marks and Spencer's, and they've proposed this law in the last few weeks, and it looks like, one day it will be illegal for many organisations in critical industries to pay the ransoms.
Could you ever fall for this, do you think? You're the technology correspondent, the paper of record. You've seen all of these that have happened in the public domain in the past, you must have lots of ways that you protect yourself that I might not know.
Well, one of the things that I started doing when I started reporting on cybercrime was I got myself a password manager.
Ooh.
The two most important things with passwords is to have a very long and complex one and to never repeat a password across your accounts. It does it all for you. It stores all your passwords and it creates all your passwords. In fact, I couldn't tell you what the password is for any account that I have. They are incredibly long, complex things that's generated by the password manager. And they're, because they're so long, they're essentially impossible to crack. But coming back to your original question, our organisation, as part of the training of staff to not fall victim to a hack, they occasionally send out emails which pretend to be, say, the HR department, saying, you've been the subject of a complaint by one of your colleagues at work. Please can you click on this link to submit your response to it? And I have clicked on one of those in the past. So
you fell for it.
We all fall for it.
You're fallible, Mark.
Yeah, we all are, I'm afraid, and that's why there will always be cybercrime.
Well,
I've confessed.
Well, we're fallible, but also we are sort of more online and networked than we ever have been. I mean, it's not just your payment methods and your communication methods that are all online now. Your fridge is connected to your Wi-Fi, people's home CCTV, some people's front door lock is connected to their Wi-Fi. Is there just something wrong in the way that we are set up and overly connected before you get into our own fallibilities?
Well, I don't know if it's right or wrong, but it's just an inevitable march of technology. But it has not escaped the attention of regulators and cyber security specialists that we are really, really vulnerable when something goes wrong. And I think the irony was, you'll remember when CrowdStrike happened. Now, this was when all the computers running a certain kind of Microsoft system all crashed because, ironically, it was a cybersecurity update software from CrowdStrike, one of the biggest cybersecurity firms in the world. Ironically, the company that named Scattered Spider, believe it or not, that brings it back to this podcast. But yeah, so when they did this faulty update, all our systems went offline and airlines had to be cancelled and businesses went blank. And yeah, that was just a wake-up call for everyone to realise how connected we are and how vulnerable we are. It was scary.
But is there a world in which we can make things secure enough, or is this just a thing that we need to accept? If we're going to live our lives and operate our lives largely online, people are going to come unstuck.
I think, that as mentioned, there'll always be human nature. There was a woman called Jen Easterly who used to be the head of American cybersecurity agency. And she famously stood up on stage in front of a whole bunch of IT companies. And she said, we don't have a cybersecurity problem. We have a software design problem. Most of the problems that are exploited by cyber criminals are really down to the same design problems being made by software companies for many, many years. They just repeat themselves. So there will always be a vulnerability. It's just a matter of how vulnerable you are, but also crucially, when you do get hacked, are you in a position to restore yourself? Have I got backups? Have I got backups that are not online that are updated every 15 minutes, so that if I am taken offline, I just go back to 15 minutes before I was hacked. Is that possible? That's the kind of industry standard.
Stop the hackers getting in, but if they do, ensure the meal deal can still happen.
Oh, it's very important.
That was Mark Sellman, technology correspondent for The Times. You can find all of the latest updates on this story and from Mark at thetimes.com if you have a subscription. That's it from us. The producer today was Rosie Stopher, the executive producer was Fiona Leach, and sound design and theme composition were by Mauro Lassetto. I'm Luke Jones. See you soon.